So the first model is what was known as the steering model. And this was developed by Linda Ray and Bromley Coombs in 2019. And it very much is designed to work aligned to the brain, the workings of the brain. And it can be used to support leaders in navigating the change process. So the first component is strategy. And we need to start out by answering that fundamental question that somebody actually put earlier into chat, that question of why. The why behind the change. Anchoring people in the why helps to create the certainty that is needed by the brain. And it helps people to understand the potential impact of the change. Understanding how the work that they will do is going to contribute to the greater good of the team, the organisation, or even the world. And that's one of the ingredients that was identified in the Google Aristotle project as being required for high-performing teams, knowing how what I'm doing day in, day out is contributing to the greater good of the team, the organisation, or possibly the world. Talent. Do you have the right mix of people involved? Who are the best people placed to influence others? And that's not always the leaders, remember. Who are the key influencers in your teams, in your organisations? Because when we get the right people involved, then the needs of significance, autonomy and equity are rewarded. Engagement. How will we support people through the change process? How can we collectively influence the change process? And how are we going to guard against change fatigue? All things that we need to be considering before we start going through this process. Adaptability. One of the reasons we said that change initiatives often fail is they don't take into account the current context of the world. That fast-paced, the uncertainty that's out there, the complexity, the volatility. Things are changing day by day, even hour by hour sometimes. So the STEER model actually reminds us that we need to be mindful of the context and consider how will we adapt our plans, our strategy, our processes to the changing circumstances. Because if this is a fairly big change process that's going to go on for a while, certainly things will have changed. How will we adapt with those changes? And what are the signals that we need to look for, to be aware of, that indicate that perhaps we need to start to make some adjustments? Lastly, the roadmap. People need to have clarity of the road ahead. They need to understand their role in change and what's expected of them. Now, clarity was another one of those key ingredients of high-performing teams in the Google Aristotle project. Because creating clarity also helps meet our need for certainty. And when we understand how we are contributing, then our need for significance is rewarded. And when we understand what is expected of us and how the work is allocated, it can actually meet our need for equity and fairness. Just having a strategy is not enough. What we mean by a roadmap is that everybody, from the very top to the very bottom of any organisational structure, needs to know what they need to do each day to support the change initiative. They need to know the tasks, the behaviours that they need to do each and every day. Pick 3. This is one of Snyder's suggestions, actually. And he suggested that a large percentage of people believe that they are consistent in behaviour. However, evidence suggests that this is not true. And leaders have a huge influence over success, or otherwise actually, of a change initiative. So Snyder actually suggested that the importance of leaders being consistent and demonstrating the behaviours which support the success of the change, the behaviours they're wishing to see in others as well, is very, very important. So Snyder suggested a very simple strategy that works with the brain. So what we do is, first of all, we should select 3 behaviours that we would like to develop. So these are behaviours that are consistent to the change that we're expecting to see and make within our organisation. For example, you may want to take more time to step back and reflect before reacting, for example. What you do is then write those 3 behavioural goals on something like an index card, and put that index card in an obvious place in your workspace, somewhere that you will see it at the beginning and end of each day. Then each morning when you go into work, the first thing you do is pick up the index card and read the behaviours, and just reflect, and I mean no more than a few seconds, reflect on what does that actually mean? How am I going to actually display those behaviours? Because what we're doing there is we're priming the brain to be aware of when you demonstrate these behaviours through the day. Because then, most importantly, at the end of the day, you pick up the card again. A few more moments to read it. But this time we're reflecting upon the times when we demonstrated those behaviours during that day. We're congratulating ourselves for the times that we did demonstrate the behaviours. But we're also being curious as to the times when we didn't demonstrate the behaviours. What we do is we continue doing this every day, every morning, every evening of every work day, until we reach the stage where there's no exceptions, when we demonstrated those behaviours all of the time. Then you can move on and select another 3 things. So that's the pick 3 method. Choose your focus. The more attention and energy we give to a problem, the more we strengthen the brain networks around the problem. We're naturally, as human beings, we're drawn towards thinking about the problem, wanting to explore the what's wrong rather than working towards a solution, because that's linked into being aware of the risk, that conscious kind of always assessing the risk, predicting the future. And it takes less cognitive effort to think about the problem, because we've already got roadmaps of previous problems that we can kind of draw upon those past experiences. So it takes less energy. Because when we think about solutions, we've got to create new neural networks, which takes more energy. Now, we know that the brain likes to conserve energy. So again, we will naturally migrate back towards the problem. Now, the choose your focus model, should I say, says there are 5 different ways we can think about a change when we're introducing, a new way of working, for example. So this model allows us to recognise which levels we're focusing on at any time, and provides us with an opportunity to actually shift our focus. So first of all, we've got the vision. What are we trying to achieve? The planning. How are we going to get there? The solution, if you like. The detail. What are we actually going to do? The actions and the behaviours. The problem. Self-explanatory. And the drama. What are the emotions and feelings building around the situation? Now, you just think about, your experiences of this. A problem occurs. We all start talking about it. The more we talk about it, the more the drama builds, the emotions build around that. And we're all the time being drawn back to that. But from a brain's perspective, it's going to be naturally supporting us to do that. What we as leaders need to do, we need to help people. We need to keep drawing them back to the vision, to the planning, and then eventually to the detail. So as a leader, we need to be thinking, first of all, about our own thinking. Where are you placing your focus? Are you focusing on the problem, paying too much attention to it rather than the solution? And then we need to focus on and be aware of, where are the team placing the focus? And again, take action to shift. And the last model is motivates. change model. Again, this was one of Linda Ray's 2020 models that she came out with. And this really is a little bit like a checklist. And let's like, you know, the brain loves a checklist. And motivation is such a complex process. There's so many different strategies and things that we can use to influence and both our own and others' motivation. So just quickly going through this kind of checklist for sustainable change. Match the language. Think about the language being used. Think back to that chapter 2, some of the examples we spoke about there. Observe the threat. Look for the signs of threat, people moving towards that protective mode. And how can you, using the SCARE or the SCARF model, how can you mitigate some of those threats? Be aware and test your assumptions. What assumptions are you making about what motivates other people? What assumptions are you making about cognitive biases that are at play? Try and give immediate rewards. When somebody feels a reward or experiences a reward, a psychological reward, it gives us a dose of dopamine. Now, dopamine is the brain's feel-good chemical. So think about, how can I build in this dosing of dopamine? What are the rewards that I can actually, how do I use this? Again, goes back to the SCARE model, threat versus reward. How can I mitigate threat producing rewards? View mistakes positively, see them as opportunities for learning. That ties in very much with a growth mindset. Acknowledge progress, notice those small wins frequently, both your own and those of other people. Take action. It's the antidote to inaction. Just one small step in pursuit of a goal can give a real boost to your motivation. Pat yourself on the back, express appreciation, pat yourself on the back, and others, pat them on the back, thank people for their efforts. And lastly, those social incentives. Find ways to show how other people are contributing to the change. Because by showing how and what other people are doing will encourage others to do similar, or possibly even do better. So that's our 4 kind of change strategies, very much modern, based on in evidence kind of neuroscience.